I began recording the session.
Huh?
I began recording this.
This session,
Yeah,
it hasn't started yet.
I know. Maybe I should just stop it for now or pause it.
Turn it over to you in a minute or so.
The
So
recording has started.
good to talk to you, Tony. And all right, everybody who's here, and I hope more people will come in. This slot ended up unoccupied for just because of scheduling switches and things like that. But I thought there were some things that needed to be addressed in group. Now we're hoping that we're going to get a lot of responses to Maria's survey. We'd like to really maximize it this time because we need feedback. But I thought that we could take advantage of this time to have a discussion of one of the important points, aims, objectives of the conference is the support of student research, especially undergraduate research. And I thought we had great people to address this point and a wonderful person to give the lead on the discussion and give the opening statement. And that is Darren Narayan, who has organized our sessions for undergraduate research and is also the big shot in undergraduate research for the AMS meeting, for the JMMs. So I'll turn the floor over to Darren.
Okay, well, thank you, Fred. So first, I see Tony Evans here, and I want to say hello because Tony Evans was my research mentor when I did an REU back in 1993. And that was such a great experience. It's hard to describe how empowering an undergraduate research experience is for an undergraduate. This was my first chance to investigate into the unknown and prove something that was going to be my own. So it got me started on research, and I can talk a little bit about the problem that Tony introduced me to. It was called representations of graphs modulo n. It was a graph labeling problem where you had to obey a certain algebraic condition. And it was great because then you could just start getting your hands on, pick a graph and find its representation number. And then you could look for families of graphs. So that's a key point for a great research problem for undergraduates. You want to have a place that's easy for them to get started and then sort of multiple paths to get there where they can just really explore and they get the freedom to pursue what they think is interesting. And the nice thing about this problem is that it was very easy to get started, but impossible to solve completely. So because you want to show students, at least I look to show students that you can get started on research here, but you're going to get stuck at some point. And then you sort of have to see, okay, well, how far can you go? Ironically, I ended up working on that research paper that started in the REU. We had enough results for a presentation at the joint meetings, but we didn't have enough for a paper at that time. So, and that's what you're going to find if you've run some REU programs or work with an undergraduate. The paper is sort of, very seldom do you get a complete paper. More than often you get a partial paper. And what you need to do is put in more effort to get there. So I'd worked on a little bit more, and then I brought in Tony later, back in around 1998. So this is 5 years after the REU, and he was so grateful to keep collaborating with it. Brought in my advisor, Garth Isaac, and the three of us wrote a very, very nice paper published later in Discrete Math. So this, I find it's incredibly, it was very powerful for me just to continue on that undergraduate research problem and then publish it later. There was actually a second paper coming out of that REU where I worked with Alan Schwenk. And it was nice because Alan really took the lead with research, but then he ended up saying, okay, well, let's try it. So we ended up submitting it to a journal, and it didn't get accepted. Okay, and that was sort of crushing for me. Not so much for him because he's more experienced, but for an undergraduate to see your first paper there be rejected, it was really sort of devastating at that point. But then there's the fact of sort of picking up and being resilient, and let's say, okay, this thing is publishable. And so then when I started off as a professor, actually at RIT, I picked up this paper and I said, no, this deserves to be published. And I told Alan was sort of at that point, well, I'm sort of done with this. But I said, no, that's the thing about undergraduates. They think they can save the world. Okay, they're so optimistic. That's why I love working with them. A research group, working with my research group, I like to describe as the opposite of a faculty meeting, because in the faculty meeting, for me, it just seems like, here's a bunch of things that don't work and we can't get this done and everybody's complaining, but there's no real complaining in the REU. They're all optimistic. So I had that attitude and I said, look, Alan, we can do this. I rewrote the paper pretty much, and then said, well, let's send this to Mathematics Magazine. And so sure enough, we ended up submitting it there. It was accepted later, and we got through. So what I'm describing here is that finding a good problem is really key. It's very difficult. Basically, what I do is I look at my research projects that I'm working on, and then I look for a small facet, which are so-called entry points, where an undergraduate can look in to see how they can get some small results. So at the very beginning, I usually have my students shoot for sort of so-called low-hanging fruit. I try to get them to get some results just so they get motivated. As I've said it before, but it is so empowering when an undergraduate gets their first result, something that they can call their own. And then success breeds success from that point. And you'll find they'll move very quickly from the low-hanging fruit to the higher fruit as they proceed through the program. But I've been really impressed with just how resilient it is to work with these and how rewarding it is. There was one problem that ties into this conference actually, where I worked on a project with a student, Victor Kostyuk and Victoria Schultz. There were two students, and we had gotten a nice problem on what's called minimal rankings, which Renu Laskar, who has been at this conference numerous times, proposed. And we worked through, and our goal at the beginning of the year was to solve one of her problems. Okay, a monster task, but we just said, okay, let's just keep working on it. And then probably we started working in August, and by, I guess, November, I had just given up on it. I just couldn't make any headway on it. And then Victor was the one saying, no, we can do this. And then a couple of weeks later, I just said, no, Victor, we can't do it. And he's like, yes, we can. We just got to keep trying. And I was like, just surprised. But we kept working, and soon enough, we got the problem. We solved it. And then we said, well, we got to go back to the Boca conference. Okay. And this was interesting because this ties into where there's a will, there's a way, right? So I needed to get both Victor and Vicky to this conference. Okay. There was no money, okay, to get them there. It's one of these things that the department head loves and the dean loves, but when you come and you ask for funding, there's nothing there. So I found I had to get really creative. Okay, so what I did is I ended up meeting. I ended up looking at first of all, I reached out to JetBlue Airways. They had just started out in the Rochester area, and this was such a crazy story. I wanted to contact them about seeing if we could collaborate on one of their operations research problems. Okay, but so I didn't know how to contact the OR team. So I called 1-800-JET-BLUE. And then I got the person on the other end there was like, well, can I help arrange your travel? And I said, no, actually, I wanted to speak to somebody about operations research. And the person had no idea what to do with this call. So she kept forwarding it. I got forwarded to another and they said, well, we'll just forward you here. And soon enough, I ended up with the vice president on the line. And then I told him, here's what we're doing. There's this wonderful conference in Florida. These students have solved a problem by one of the researchers, and we want to get them so that they can present it there. What do you think? He sent me 2 tickets, 2 round trip tickets, 1 for each of the students. Okay, so then we had that all set. And then I went to our development office. Okay, they're the people that work with alumni to bring in some money. And so I said, well, I have 2 round trip tickets, but I need money for hotels and meals and so forth for these students. Now, most of the time, I've heard you're not supposed to go to the development office yourself, but it turned out they were welcome with it. The development office and everybody really thought this was a good idea. And the development office said they want projects like these. Okay, the key is that they do a lot of asks for $100 here, $250 here, but they have very seldom a very small quantity of projects in the $500 to $1,000 range, which have a definite return within 6 months or within the academic year, right? So I'll say that again, projects between $500 to $1,000 within the academic year. So what we did is we could bring the students in and the alumni in to have a luncheon with the students. And the students could say, here's why we want to go to this conference, okay? And then what we do is with the students go, the plan is for the students to go to the conference, and the alumni was so impressed with this here and with the students and how diligent these students were. They want to go off and present their research at a conference. And he immediately wrote a check for $1,000. So that covered the students, along with JetBlue's contribution. The students got all their expenses paid to the Boca conference. And then after that, when they come back, this is the best part, we have them meet with the alumni after the conference and they share their experience, okay? And the alumni right away just turned around and said, this is great, I wanna support 4 students next year for $2,000. And then we started building. And that's when we started building our record. So notice we started with nothing, and then we started building up these conference presentations at the Boca conference. This was great. And then after that, well, we had enough sort of a critical mass of accomplishments. So we said, I think this is time now that we could apply for for an REU. So the very first thing we did is we applied for something called an NREUP. Not many people hear about this, but this is a program through the MAA. Okay, the Mass Association of America does a program called the National Research Experience for Undergraduate Program. It's focused on minority students, so LANA, so African American, Latin American, Native American students, and provides funding for an REU locally at your own university for anywhere between 6 and 8 weeks. So we applied for one of those, and using the track record we had with the Boca conference, we got one of those grants. So then we worked through that project. It was really, really successful. I actually continued on an offshoot of the undergraduate research project I'd worked on with Alan Schwenk. And then we said, okay, after this, we're ready to apply for an NSF REU. So when we went up for the NSF REU, we took our time and waited until we had enough of a track record to say, we can do this. We just need the NSF money to expand it. And that was received very well by the reviewers. And then we got our first NSF REU grant. We'd supported 8 students over the course of 8 weeks. I took the exact same format from the REU at the University of Dayton that I participated in. We had 8 students, 8 weeks. Dayton had a great feature where we brought the students all together for lunch every day. So we still do that. And then we also have the students present every week. And that was great. So I took some of the same facets from the REU that I participated in. And then once we got rolling, it's worked extremely well. We've done been very, very active in getting results out. Now, there's a question there I found about publications coming out of REUs. So there's sort of a question here, how you shoot for publications. Well, my feeling is that if the work that the students are done, you should do everything you can to help them get it published. I think that really falls on the mentors. But if the goal of the RU shouldn't be necessarily a paper, the goal is research. But then if it does reach that publishable level, then you should do it. Now, it doesn't mean that if you don't publish the paper, then it's not a failure. The student has definitely got some experience. But I found if you can get a paper based on publishable results, I think the experience is so much better for the students. And so with that, I've also found that what I do is I bring the students in the entire process. Okay, once we have this paper that I feel is ready for publication, we start scoping through the journals. Okay, and we start saying, okay, is this a good place to submit it? Should we try this here? And then we decide on a journal. So they get practice on deciding where this should be placed, right? We might not place it into something like Combinatorica or JCTB, but we can find a place to publish it in a solid referee journal. So what we do is we seek out the journal, we submit the paper, I show the students how the submission process works, getting all our figures in the right format and following the guidelines and the templates for the journal, and then we send it away. Then when it comes back, I share with them the reports, what the referees like and what the referees don't like. You get a positive report and everything is good. And other times you get a negative review, and then you have to say that's the tougher part. You have to mentor the students here and saying, well, let's read through carefully and see what the response was, and then make the revisions here, and then maybe resubmit to another journal. And that's what we've had to do in the past, and it's worked out very well. But I found that anytime I've worked with an undergraduate, just to reiterate, it's been great. The biggest challenges, of course, are finding the problem to start off with. And once you get that student engaged, then it's really a great experience. Okay. So finally, I'll wrap up and then leave some time for some questions here. I do run a session at the joint math meetings. When I was an undergraduate, back with Tony Evans' project, I remember that I had presented my work in Cincinnati at the 1994 joint math meetings. And they had a special session for research in mathematics by undergraduates, which I was so grateful to present in. And then the session continued for a while, but then around 2000 and 2001, maybe 2001, it disappeared. So I spoke to Gary Gordon at the Boca, I think it was in New Orleans, but the same Southeastern conference. It was at Baton Rouge at LSU. And so I spoke to him and I said, where did this session go? And he says, well, it turned out that there wasn't really enough interest in getting it going. And I said, but I was just at the joint meetings and there was so much interest. We actually had to look for a bigger room. I had to go to the AMS and said that the rooms for the undergraduate talks are overflowing. So then so with that, I ended up submitting a proposal to run a special session for research in math by undergraduates at the joint meetings in San Diego. This is 2002, and it was a huge success. And then I've continued to run it ever since then. So now we're coming up on year 21, but it's really been a great experience to see how these students are working. Okay, so I'll stop there, and I'm happy to take any questions about parts of undergraduate research. I'm not sure if I'll have the answers, but I'll do my best to try to answer them.
Well, we'd also like to hear suggestions as to how to improve what we're doing at the and broaden it at the Southeastern from you and from other people. So I will let you continue to hold the floor, but let's discuss this. Questions first. Or maybe a statement by Tony Evans.
Yes.
Well, I guess I'm supposed to say something now, but happy to see you again. Haven't seen you in a long time.
Yes.
But yes, you're right. Finding problems which are easy to start on is it's the main problem with undergraduate research. There's still lots of problems when it comes to representing graphs, because there are so many different classes of graphs. The student could just pick a graph and work on it and try and generalize it. But I will leave it to others to continue the discussion.
Well, I loved Gary Sherman's quasets invention, which he used for REUs for a while. He just coined a new object and let the students build it.
Yes. So I'll give a plug for a journal. There's a journal called Involve. Many of you have probably heard about it. It's published by Mathematical Science Publishers out at Berkeley, but it's a great journal for undergraduates. All the papers, of course, are refereed. There's a very, very nice editorial board, and the referee process is very serious. But the referees do provide really good advice for the papers. If this is a paper here that definitely should be published, the referee reports are very, very thoughtful. You have to have at least 1/3 of the authors have to be undergraduates. And once that's set, then the paper can go out to be reviewed. But I like the fact that the journal knows that there's undergraduates involved here. So they're a little bit more conscious on the turnaround time. With an undergraduate paper, if they submit it to a journal and they don't hear back for 2 years, it's not as empowering. By that time, they've most likely graduated and moved on. Not to say that if the result is worthy of sending it to a really top tier journal, then definitely go for it. But turnaround time for these students is more of an issue than it is for a tenured faculty member. I'll put it that way. But I love the special sessions that are being run at this BOCA conference. The talks have been really just amazing to see what these students are doing already. At the end of the session last night, I think Fred and Maria and I had talked about sort of a virtual extension of the BOCA conference. If there's a way to do a virtual extension of the student talks, that would be great. Because yesterday in the session, we had a very, very nice talk by students that were in Israel. Okay, they had some really, really great results. They gave a great presentation. To get undergraduate students to travel from Israel all the way to the BOCA conference is a bit of a challenge. There's a lot of funding involved there to get them there, which may not be accessible to them. But for them to join virtually and present, that made it possible. So my feeling is that if we ran this conference this year in person, we wouldn't, I don't know if they would have been able to speak. So I like the feeling of this feature of having some people being able to join remotely to the conference. Maybe it could be just a session. Intermixing it with a live feed would be tricky. But I was just thinking last night, maybe not just for the research, but for undergraduate, for the entire conference, would it be possible? I probably should ask this to Fred first before I ask it to others, but
No, I leave it out for discussion. I want to hear views
Yeah.
on this. I
Is
guess
it-
Maria does too.
Sure. So
She
if,
does the mechanics. So.
yeah, so if the Boca Conference runs Monday to Friday, would it be possible maybe the Saturday before to do a virtual event? Because then Sunday would be a lot of traveling. And then having the conference run in person Monday to Friday, just throwing it out there. Is that possible?
Well, there's a huge, the example you cite as serving is Israel.
Yeah.
And there's no way of having a Saturday session that involves Israelis.
Oh,
None of them would go, but it's just that would be not, well, it wouldn't be kosher.
okay, then how about Sunday?
So, well, that's, you're saying it would interfere with the travel. Sunday would not present that kind of a
Okay.
difficulty, no.
May I make a point?
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, what we do here in the UPR for many years is that some very bright undergraduates can take graduate classes, or they take a class which is convalidated as undergraduate. They sit with the graduate students, so they get the grades accordingly. Though they most of my students who go on to do PhDs here or some other place at UPR or other universities, they are really very advanced. So they already have a very strong background for research. And I have, over the years, actually supervised students and sometimes got publications and things like that. So I think that might be depending upon the departments and the universities, whether they have flexibilities or not. That way one can get students involved in research at an undergraduate level. Of course, I mean, there are problems which are accessible to students who have only just the undergraduate background.
Well, I agree with that, but you're moving off the point that we were just on here, that of the participation here, and Darren raised the idea of how to work a virtual portion to get the students to participate in this conference, and I'd like to stay on.
Sorry, I think I apologize. I think I meant to contribute to general undergraduate participation, but where you are focused to this particular virtual conference.
Just for a little time here. That's
Right.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
We already have parallel sessions. We can make some of the parallel sessions virtual sessions, so people who otherwise can't get to the conference for different reasons can present. And you could have a room set aside where people at the conference who want to attend can see on a screen the talks being given.
Sure.
I'm not an authority on that sort of logistics. I don't know if Jean or Maria would want to speak to that.
There's a lot of ways to do a hybrid environment, but we would have to check out the rooms and make sure that they can accommodate for the live people, and then have make sure that there are enough of a Zoom feed for the bandwidth. So this way a Zoom session could go on as well. So it's all up, that's uncharted waters for me. I'll be researching that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry, I might be tangential, but in some, we can maybe perhaps some poster sessions that could be continuous all day, so people can drop in and with the undergraduate students and ask them questions.
Poster sessions have not worked here.
Ah,
I mean, if someone wanted to organize them and take full charge of them, we would permit it again. But the fact is that the participation that of students in the standard way of giving papers, presenting them, getting their feet wet on presenting before an audience, a sympathetic audience at a conference. This has been one of the attractions of this conference. And the poster session thing is, it's not that it's a bad idea in general, it's just that because of the history, because of the culture here, when we've raised this issue, there's always been a small group wanting it, and then a lot of other people say, no, I want my students to present. And let's make that a discussion point. I'm sorry, I wanted you to take the lead here, Darren. I'm going to shut up.
Yeah, not a problem. I do have to head out to another meeting in just a second here, but I like this. I like Tony's idea there about running a parallel session. There's lots of ways that this could be done.
Good. How are you doing?
It could be done with a live feed, but if we weren't able to get that, if there are too many logistics, you could actually have them send in a pre-recorded video, which we could play. I've seen that done before. I ran a virtual session at the joint math meetings, and that's what we did for some of the talks. They actually sent me a video ahead of time, and then they just played it during the time slot. So that is a possibility as well. You don't have to worry about setting up a camera or a live feed or anything. So that's sort of the easiest way to get that done.
So you had a virtual component to the undergraduate research sessions at the JMM in 2020?
In 2021. So this last year, there was all virtual.
Oh, the whole meeting was virtual. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So we ended up bringing some. Having students, people send in videos that work.
Then they can't have any interchange with the audience.
We did bring them in on Zoom, but we didn't have to worry about the bandwidth. So they were there, but they didn't have to worry about, we didn't have to worry about filming anything or doing a live feed. We just had the Zoom.
Right.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, but I do have to step out to another meeting. But thanks to you all.
So I thank you for everything here.
Great, my pleasure. Great.
Does anyone want to discuss that particular aspect further? The idea of two ideas were raised: a day before or after the conference for undergraduate for a virtual day, or a mixture, mixed modality conference, and with the idea that we would permit people to send in videos in order to mitigate Zoom exhaustion.
I mean, video sounds like an okay idea to me, simply because, for one thing, that would, make it so that we don't have to worry as much about travel discrepancies or bandwidth or anything. If people can, sort of arrange the videos themselves, shoot the videos themselves, and then, send them along or something. And I think the students might even, like welcome the idea of having the ability to sort of film the presentation of their work and so forth for other people to see. I think there might be a little bit of the edge taken off of having to worry about presenting live, travel live, the things that, sometimes get in the way of, I want to go to this conference, but I'm busy, or I'm out, or I'm too far away, or it's too expensive to go over there, that sort of thing. But
Well, you were talking about having live question and answer, or that issue was raised about the Q&A being live. And this is, I think, a general desire at these meetings. I have limited experience, but the complaints and the praises of other meetings were based on how well the Q&A worked. Because if you just have a bunch of videos and you don't have any interplay between speakers and participants, you've lost a lot of the benefit.
right. No, it's possible maybe instead of shooting the videos ahead of time, we just push for more virtual live Q&A talks and presentations, and followed by a Q&A. I mean, I don't know if necessarily that solves the bandwidth situation. I think maybe just having multiple days, or even just one large. I mean, I like the idea of a virtual day afterwards for the students to be able to present and have their Q&A sessions afterwards, if only because again, a virtual presentation, I think, takes some of the edge off, takes some of the the worry about travel, or the worry about being there, making sure everything works. So
that's a strong argument for the partially virtual meeting. Absolutely. Any more on this issue? And the whole, I'd like to get conversation going on the whole issue of, just what we're talking about here, not necessarily restricted to undergraduate presentations, about what you would, whether you like the idea of a mixed virtual and live conference, and how, what form you think it should take, whether it be virtual days or virtual sessions throughout the week. That's a major point. And how you would make the distinction of the participants. Anyone?
my only concern with a virtual day is that, putting it all, my only concern about the virtual day is the idea that putting it all on one day could cause a problem with too many people trying to do too much at once. And if there would be some kind of, bandwidth situation, or making sure that everything is working okay. I don't know enough about, servers and, having all these people online at the same time, how much that would work. But I mean, if we could make it work, I would think a virtual day is probably preferable to having virtual sessions all throughout the week. Because if it's all throughout the week, you have to worry about making sure that, you know, the system is in place, that the videos are working all right the whole time and everything. It's just, I guess it's just, it makes more sense, in my opinion, to do virtual on one day than it is to worry about having to run virtual, you know, multiple times on multiple days, that sort of thing. But I mean, I think
Go
either
ahead.
one would work okay.
I'd like to keep that point going here and let you finish and let and other people. I'd like to hear views on that. Also hear if Jean or Maria have had any thoughts on whether one or the other of these would be workable. And Jean says she wants to study on it. But, so I'm not going to press her on it. I don't know if Maria wants to speak on it or not.
Okay, what I've been doing to a little study on is kind of looking to see who's giving talks that I could go to for free and seeing how it works for them, and then coming up with a conclusion of how to, what to bring to our conferences. So that's how I've been studying up on it, and then asking other coordinators the best way of handling something. So I have something lined up for next week, and then I could check on that and then give you some ideas from that. How's that sound?
Thank you.
I'll just make a comment. Right now, many institutions are doing half virtual students and half in-person students. So I actually imagine bandwidth may not be a problem because many institutions are doing this right now already, essentially. But I would point, in my opinion, I don't think I would want an all day of virtual because I think that gives people who are in person an excuse to skip out, maybe, or they might be less likely to come. So maybe you split it, it's in the afternoon on one day and it's in the morning on another day. And that way you accommodate, you know, different time zones as well that way.
Sounds interesting. Oh. Any other comments?
Fred, this is Anton.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I've brought undergraduates to this conference before, and I think it's a wonderful experience. As you said, the immediate feedback is something these students will never forget. Something that I find is difficult to organize is undergraduates, they show up and then sometimes it's hard to plan ahead. And so what I find is that, you know, there's a long period in the year where we don't know, where we don't have any contact with you. And we would have to know, how do we know that next year there will be an undergraduate session?
Uh-huh.
You know, I did not know that there was an undergraduate session this year.
Okay. You're right. That was this time, one of the things that slipped through the cracks because of the disruption and the switch to virtual and some communication problems. We had well, we've had some difficulties on student sessions, not with Darren, but we've had collapses of student sessions in the past, and we don't want to announce them unless we're sure they're going to come through. And what made it turn out to be easier to do, but still not as easy as we would like, is that the day sensitivity was not as strong in a virtual meeting, and what handicaps what makes having undergraduate sessions difficult is the problem. Oh, an undergraduate session, that would be wonderful. No, I can't come that day or that day. And you end up with having to say, and this is just something we do. When I announced the thing at the beginning of the conference, now the late notification obviously contributed to this, but it's not the only thing that contributes to this. Said there are undergraduate research talks throughout the week, and there always would be, no matter when you put the undergraduate sessions. I mean, having undergraduate sessions every day of the week might be the best way to go. With, as Liz suggests here, the morning afternoon mixture, no matter whether it be virtual or live. But how do you personally, Anton, feel about the virtual versus live?
I find that these virtual sessions is also a chance to involve a much broader range of collaboration. And I have been attending virtual conferences in Russia, for instance, and you have a chance here that can be used in a completely new way, thinking about international collaborations. I have collaborators in Eastern Europe who can definitely not afford going to the US. But if I tell them we have this conference, all you have to pay is the registration fee, this opens a door to a broader audience. And so this is sort of to digest from the COVID year. Many people seem to be complaining about the COVID, but I think there's also opportunities for more collaboration.
That's interesting. How would you mix, if we had the full the virtual? How would you mix in the virtual with the live at this conference? I don't think we want to eliminate people coming from Boca totally.
What if you had a room with a big screen where the virtual attendees would show and the local people can sit in the room?
But how do the virtual people attend other talks?
does your university have video cameras
Oh, yeah.
rooms?
Yeah.
Can they produce a live feed?
Yes, I don't know if we'd have enough to support the full range of the conference. We might be able to during spring break. I mean, this year we didn't have such an object, but we might be able to do that. We might not. I don't know. That's one of the things we'd have to investigate. But yeah, and the room with a big screen, I think, would be pretty easy. That was suggested earlier in this discussion. But, so I think it's a good idea, but I don't know. But you would be interested in seeing us try to do a mixture.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. I would support this idea.
Okay. That's what, those are the yeas and nays I want to have us here.
I can just share, when I was a graduate student, I attended this conference, and it was such a good experience to hear from more established people. Hey, you did a good job. Thank you for your talk.
Right.
This really helps you to continue what you're doing.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other comments?
Yeah, I mean, as long as it's not a strain on resources or again, bandwidth or anything like that. Yeah, I don't see what would be wrong about, just having a live feed that's always just feeding onto the screens, or whether it's the main room or the smaller room, so that, people can, watch the live sessions live virtually, or they can be in the room. And depending on how we want to handle Q&A through either chat rooms or microphones in the room or anything like that, the people online could ask questions to the presenters in the room, or the people in the room can ask questions of the presenter online or something like that. So I think it'd be possible. I think it would work, as long as, as long as we have the resources and the bandwidth and everything to be able to pull that off. Which,
Yeah, you also need enough people to do that too, because you need a couple people in each room, the speaker and somebody to control the Zoom link and do the Q&A.
Sure, yeah. I don't know if that would be a matter of maybe assigning 2 chairs to a room or something, like someone who's handling the live stuff and someone who's handling the virtual stuff, or if we have to go so far as to make sure there's a tech person in every room, just in case something goes wrong. So again, there's resources that have to be taken into account.
Right.
But if we can pull it off, yeah, I think it'd be a great idea.
John from Maryland or John from Virginia want to say something?
Hi, hello.
Hello.
This is Gustavo from the University of Puerto Rico. I would like to comment that it would also been raised in the case of a hybrid conference to maybe also have a way to include virtual people during like the lunch hour or the coffee breaks, have like a screen or something. It might be difficult, but I think it will be worth trying. So yeah, I have to suggest that idea.
Sure.
Yeah, that would be a countdown screen for the sessions. So this
Well,
way,
I think if he's talking about a single room operating at lunchtime and coffee breaks and so on, where online presentations were presented. That would be workable, but the people who felt the need of lunch wouldn't be there. For example, it would work during the coffee breaks.
It's better to make that suggestion. Okay.
Yeah, I can
We could
definitely-
also do, in a normal year, we could also do that on excursion day.
It's difficult to translate the entire experience online. So, but yeah.
Understand.
Since I dropped in late, this is a discussion about how to maybe do things electronically next time as well as in person, or?
It's the first of what would have to be a series of interchanges about whether we should maintain a virtual aspect to the conference when we go live again next spring break.
Okay, thanks.
And it was a natural outgrowth and also a planned part of the discussion. It was a natural outgrowth of the discussion of undergraduate research, which is also something I'd love to hear your views on.
Well, I have to apologize. I didn't get any undergraduates here this time, like I usually had 4 or 5 per year, but last year in the spring with online, the introduction to research class didn't make as much progress as before. It's hard to work in groups as much for the students when they hadn't actually formed their groups before we went online.
Right.
I guess just a general comment about this in general. This is the 3rd online conference I've been in, and it's just kind of draining in some sense because I have to attend as many talks as I can, but I have to do my teaching and committee duties and faculty meetings, and we're doing faculty recruiting, and there are the seminars for that and so on. So I'm kind of a zombie, as I've heard it called at this point. I've already had about 30 hours of Zoom meetings this week, including this. So it's just kind of punch drunk. So I'm not sure how much people would want to go to a conference online if they didn't, when they could go in person and relax and talk to people in between talks and not have to worry about their other duties as much.
I could give you names on numbers on other conferences when I see some, because there are some coming up for different things through either Facebook or whatever else, and I'll take a look at what those numbers are. And I'll talk to the organizers.
There was a probability conference, a world probability conference that was put together totally online, I think in August. And I was really surprised that so few people participated in it and so on. There were talks by field medals winners who had 40 people in them, was all, when it was a worldwide thing. So, and they'd actually schedule them so they gave one talk in the morning and one talk in the early evening, so people in anybody could attend at a reasonable time. And it's still, a Fields Medal winner not getting more than 40 some people, I thought was ridiculous.
sometimes when you are too accommodating during an event, people are more lax.
Mhm.
So that's it. There's a lot of components in that. That's why I see from things I've done in the past.
Mhm.
And sometimes if you give the same conference in two different places, you get totally different numbers too. So it's kind of like a numbers game.
Well, we're faculty members, we're optimizers. We're going to be as lax as you let us be,
Okay, I probably should, well, anyone else wants to talk, please. Otherwise, I probably should close this. I am going to, I need a large number of referees lined up, so we won't have the time delay. I need a large number lined up for the proms volume for this year, and I also need some volunteers for quick refereeing of papers that remain to be looked at from last year. Sad to say. Email me or find a friend, email me or something if you can. That's and we always are looking for suggestions for plenary speakers and special session speakers, and you can email us those, or you can put it in as part of your set of answers to the to Maria's survey, which I'm sure you're all going to help us with by sending them in. So thank you very much for coming to this session, and I'm sorry that it was not well promulgated in advance. This is, I'm sorry. So there is a set of talks starting. You have 20 minutes for to get 19 now. I went longer to get coffee, and the sessions all start in all rooms at 10:50, and then
Fred, can I just interject for 1 minute?
of course you can.
Good morning, everybody. Just want to fix my volume. It may be a little low. That's better for me. Now I can hear myself. Not that I need that. I don't want to be redundant, but just to be sure everybody's clear, we have an addition to today's schedule. Peter Tittman from MIT University of Applied Science